Hello and welcome to the Tune-Up, the show where we talk about all things mental and physical wellness and well-being, hopefully with a dash of humor, but usually it's just me making myself laugh, but that's okay. I am your host, Sarah Z, and this week I wanted to share with you a myth that I see surrounding anxiety, and the reason I think it's important is, all the time I'm talking about mental health and the importance of taking care of our mental health and anxiety. And I meet folks and I see them on social media and I see that a lot of us are still struggling with anxiety being in the driver's seat of our life. And that we tend to live our lives trying to Hello and welcome to the Tune-Up, the show where we talk about all things mental and physical wellness and well-being, hopefully with a dash of humor, although sometimes it's just me making myself laugh, which I'm okay with. I am your host, Sarah Z, and this week I want to talk to you just about one myth that I see surrounding the management of anxiety and anxiety disorders. And I chose this as the topic this week because I'm pretty out about my anxiety. I talk about it all the time with folks in my life, and I share about it on social media, and I connect with and I see a lot of folks who are struggling, and it really feels as though anxiety is in the driver's seat of our lives a lot of the time. And I certainly have been there myself, and I know how horrible that can be, and how I certainly know that that's not the life that I wanted for myself, and it's not the life that I want for my kids, and it's not the life that I want for anybody who is suffering with anxiety. And I started this podcast because I firmly believe that we can have fun, full, exciting, lovely lives and manage our anxiety. And I just wanted to share one of the misconceptions I see about anxiety that kind of keeps us out of the driver's seat of our own life and lets anxiety take the wheel, so to speak. And that is the idea that if we just hit upon the right combination, whether it's medication and mindfulness tools and reducing our triggers down to zero, and maybe just kind of boxing off our life enough, we'll be able to make our anxiety go away. And unfortunately, and I know this sucks to hear, it was a hard pill for me to swallow, but unfortunately, anxiety isn't going to go away. And I shared with this in episode 2 when I really dove into and explained how anxiety is triggered in the brain and what happens when we're having an anxious episode. There really isn't an off switch for that. And really, the fight or flight response, the anxious response we feel, is a necessary function of the brain in keeping us alive. And it's really necessary. And so if we turn that off, we're actually turning off something that is keeping us on this planet. I mean, sure, it's a little wonky. When I talk to people about my anxiety, I like to talk about it as the analogy I use is my anxiety is kind of like the early market car alarms. I don't know how old you are, but when car alarms first came out, they were super sensitive. I mean, anything would set those suckers off. a leaf would fall on the hood of the car or a light breeze, and all of a sudden you hear whoop, 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 and they would go on for way too long because people were parked they're way too far away from where they actually are, and so they're not ever in a place where they can turn it off easily, and they were so flipping annoying, but they were necessary, right? And so, because you don't want someone to steal your car. You don't want someone to break into your car. And so our anxiety is like that. Like, it's just like a finely tuned early market car alarm. It's totally necessary, but sometimes it goes off and it's not really a danger or a threat. And I think that the sooner we come to accept that, and the sooner that we come to grips with that we're not going to hit upon some right combo where anxiety is just going to magically go away and we're going to wake up like, boo, 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 everything's fine and perfect all the time. I mean, the sooner that we accept that, the better off we're going to be. And then we can shift into what I really think is the exciting, juicy part. And that's where we learn to educate ourselves and empower ourselves and really learn the tools that are going to take care of our discomfort and the symptoms and our feelings of anxiety in a way, and we're going to practice them, in a way that we can still perform optimally, right? Because the truth is, there are some super highly successful people out there who are living full, extraordinary, lovely lives, and they also have anxiety. And they're not unicorns. Maybe they have more money than us, or maybe they have access to doctors that we don't have yet, or maybe they've learned tools that we we don't know about yet. But that's just because they're at a different portion of our journey. They're not some mythical creature. Like, they're humans like us, and they have the same kind of raw materials we do, and they have just made the decision like, okay, I've got big things I want to achieve, and I have anxiety. What am I going to do about that, right? So they've come to the decision sooner than we have. So they no longer are like, okay, I'm not going to wait for this to go away, because there's stuff I want to achieve, right? They've just come to this decision, this realization sooner than we have. And that is, okay, anxiety's not going anywhere. I got to figure out a way to deal with it and handle it so that I can still live my life. And that's what I want for you. That's what I want for everybody. That's what I want for myself. And so that, to me, is just the purpose of our whole conversation here today, is just really dispelling that idea that we can make it go away and that it needs to go away, and hopefully get you excited about really taking back the steering wheel and getting in the driver's seat and getting your car back on the road where you want it to go, right? And once I made that shift, I decided like, okay, so anxiety's in my life. I need to have a relationship with it. I need to learn how to manage it. And, one of the tools that I've talked about before is labeling our anxiety, and how by doing that, by calling it by its name, we actually start to reduce the physiological symptoms that we feel when we're in an anxiety attack. But I would even take it one step further. Don't just call it anxiety. Give it an actual frickin' name. And the reason I advise you to do this is when you name something, you give yourself a little bit of psychological distance. So no longer are you anxiety, but anxiety is something that you have, or anxiety is something that you experience, and it's outside of you. It's not you, and it's not running you. It's an experience. It's a thing outside of yourself. It just gives you a little bit of space from it. And I'm going to share the name that I have for my anxiety here today. It's a little juvenile. I call it downer douchebag. And I know that's a little bit on the nose, but when I was naming my anxiety, I was a little irritated with it. So I did. I called it Downer Douchebag. Now, you don't have to go that route. You can give it a mundane name like Amy or Bob. Or you could give it, whatever. But just give it a name. And, I was laughing about it the other day because I was kind of giving myself a pep talk, and I was talking to myself about my anxiety. I was like, don't let Double D, Double D is not going to drive the car, Sarah. You've got to drive the car. And I just started laughing to myself because I hadn't realized when I named my anxiety that my inner teenage boy humor had named it Double D, and it just started cracking me up. And then I realized that what do a good pair of Double Ds need? They need a bra. And that's exactly what your anxiety needs, right? Your anxiety needs a good bra. Now, I don't know if you've had a good bra, but there's an art to it. Like, you need to actually get the correct measurements. You need to measure around and know your cup size, because the wrong bra is freaking uncomfortable. The wrong bra, can cause back pain, dig into your shoulders, and you're constantly tugging at it and pulling it up. And that's what anxiety is. Like, when we're not treating it, when we're not managing it effectively, it's super freaking uncomfortable. And it's like detrimental to, you can't perform well. Like, I was trying to play tennis and I'm constantly like pulling up my bra strap. It doesn't work, right? And so your anxiety is the same way. It needs the right bra. It needs something that's going to support it. And in a way that allows it to, exist, because Double D exists, but in a way that you're supported and you have what you need so you can go about your day. And so that's kind of my story for today. I'm not going to go into it beyond that. I will say that the more tools that you discover, the more advantageous or advantage you'll have in your relationship with your anxiety. Medication certainly is one route, but research has actually found that there are other treatments that are actually just as effective or even more effective in some cases. Cognitive behavioral therapy, for one, is actually shown to be more effective in some cases than just medication alone. So I want to encourage you, go out and explore. What's it going to take to take care of this anxiety in a way so that you can still perform optimally and live with it and still thrive? And, have a grab bag of different things. I really encourage that. It even occurred to me this weekend as I was driving in my car. I make these associations and I'm like, I got to share this on the podcast. So this weekend I had to go pick up my husband's cake for his birthday, and it was in a part of Los Angeles that I know a little bit, but I don't know it like the back of my hand. Like I couldn't just like do it off the top of my head, like figure out how to get there. So I'm like, I put it in the GPS, and I wasn't really paying attention, which is a danger sign in LA, because it sent me on the freeway, which I don't know if you've ever been in LA freeway traffic before, but it is horrible. And if you want to have an anxiety attack, I mean, that's where you should go. That will trigger you right away. And yes, it was a pain in the rear. I got on the freeway. It was crowded. There was a baseball game or something going on. And of course, my E-light goes on for my gas gauge. And I'm like, holy shit, I'm going to run out of gas on the freeway. I'm flipping the frick out. But I take the next exit and I pull to the side of the road, and I'm like, okay, so the GPS was my strategy to get where I needed to go. And it didn't work. That was not what I needed. The freeway was not what I needed. But the nice thing about the GPS is you can go back in, go to your settings, and hit the little button that says avoid highways, which I did. And then it sent me around, sent me surface streets to get me where I needed to go. And that's how I feel about tools and strategies for managing anxiety. You're going to want a grab bag of stuff that you can pull out when you need it to fit your situation. For a long time, I was very, kind of intellectual. I don't know that that's the right word, but I did a lot of journaling around my anxiety to kind of unwind the kind of nest of my thoughts when I was having an anxiety attack. But the problem with journaling is that's not the greatest tool if you're you're about to go in and do a presentation at work. You can't really pop out your journal and say, hold on, I gotta do a stream of consciousness unwinding for 10 to 15 minutes. You can't really do that. However, you could do a breathing technique that is kind of mellows your nervous system, and you just go to the bathroom and do it for a few moments, and then you're back out, and you're like, okay, let's roll, let's do it. So you really do want access to and the ability to pull out different things as needed. And what you'll find is, some tools are more effective for certain situations and certain triggers than others. So I guess, the purpose of all of this conversation is to empower you to go out and seek, be a searcher in how to manage and take care of your anxiety. And I'm just going to close with, and I feel a little geeky doing it, but I want to close with a poem by Rumi, which I even just saying that I sound so artsy fartsy. It's so funny, but it's called The Guest House, which you may have heard of it. But what I loved about it was it really talks about making a friend of the emotions or the situations in life that most of us try to avoid, which is what I started talking about in the podcast in the beginning, which is basically trying to do away with anxiety altogether and trying to get rid of it. That's not really going to be effective in the long run. In the long run, we're better served by welcoming it and learning how to take care of it in a way that allows it to do what it's going to do, and manage those symptoms, and still allows us to live the lives that we want to live. So I'm going to close our little podcast with this because I love it. It's called The Guest House by Rumi. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival. A joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they're a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice. Meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. And I would say that anxiety is on that list too. Anxiety has taught me a lot about myself, about humanity, about being gentle, about expectations, about what I want in the world and how I want to show up and how I want to live. And in a weird way, I'm thankful for it. And I never would have gotten to this place had I been stuck on, I've got to get rid of it. I've got to figure out a way to stop having anxiety. So that's what I'm going to leave you with this week. And I will catch y'all next week. Bye.